30 seconds early. Our cameraman's lying to us. Yeah, so we'll get it warmed up to a slow start here. We'll have people joining us. Last Thursday's got over 1,500 views so far, just on Facebook. Doesn't count YouTube and Twitter and some of the others.
Yeah, that's a great resource.
So I'm thinking people are hungry for this stuff. So
yeah,
well,
it's certainly been helpful for us, and I have enjoyed the expanding of my knowledge in those arenas. So that's been really good.
Well, we were evaluating one of your children today, the boy,
Eric.
Yeah, and a lot of his problems center around that macula, the macula vision in the eye. And if we're going to do this next week, which you and I haven't discussed, I wanted to do a whole hour on eye development.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll help give you a bigger background to help your son.
Right.
And also our viewers, because this is kind of a common problem.
Right.
Like they can't read, they're having problems reading, they're maybe dyslexic, they're emotional, they're all these problems, and it's part of their eye development.
Mm-hmm.
And who knew?
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's amazing, and just watching you work with him and seeing how he was responding and watching how his eyes were tracking, and I mean, all the other things come right out of that, it seems like.
right. So that's a lower level development problem. So everything above that is off center. And you work in the construction industry some,
mm-hmm.
so you know that the crooked door is not the problem, it's a symptom.
Right.
Right. The cause of the problem is a leaking gutter that sapped the foundation and made the floor crooked. So trimming the door is not going to solve the problem.
Right.
Or if it does solve it, it's just temporary. Same thing with neurological development. So it's all built, we've got a foundational things. The brain develops in predictable order. And when we have to find out where it went wrong, and you got to go back to that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And see if the foundation's crooked, it's not just enough to fix the foundation, you got to fix the rain gutter.
Right.
Because the rain gutter leaking is what sapped the foundation. So I've had people where they bring their child, I expect to advance every 3 months, where we're going to advance one grade level. We're going to be reaching these developmental milestones. And sometimes we reach those milestones 3-6 months later, bam, they're back where it was.
Mm.
Something is knocking them back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to go fix the rain gutter. You've got to find what's causing the foundation to be sapped, or you're going to be constantly shoring up the foundation. So I thought that analogy might.
It's a very good
God bless you.
analogy. Yeah.
But tonight we're here to talk about the positive environment. Would you like a positive environment in your classroom?
Definitely.
So you homeschool. A lot of our audience is homeschool. We've got a vaccine information network who's online right now, 150,000 people who are having access to this, who a lot of these attribute their problems to vaccine injuries. And that's when they notice the regressions. And I would venture to say I'm not anti-vaccine, I'm just saying be careful and use your God-given noggin and be smart about vaccines, spread them out, let the brain mature to a certain point but some kids, they get a vaccine and it knocks them backwards developmentally, mm-hmm. which is not a huge problem if you march them right back forward. Part of the problem is they get knocked backwards and then we don't recognize the problem and we don't fix it. So all their life they're struggling with this problem, and part of that problem helps generate a negative environment. Mm-hmm. And you've got 3 kids at home right now that you're going, and you've homeschooled 2 others, right?
Right.
And you're going to take on how many more?
Hey, I don't know.
Well, bless your hearts, your children, you adopted them.
Right.
And we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't want to step on on your toes or mama's toes.
No, there's no stepping on our toes at all. The adoption journey has been wonderful, but also challenging. And
I love those kids.
Some of
Those
the
are great kids.
natural things that we did with our birth children in terms of developmental things that we did even instinctively, not even having learned some of these things, or that our parents and different people told us we should do. These kids didn't have all that. Right. So coming into our home a little bit later, it's the foundation idea that you talked about is really significant, because those base things are out of kilter, and so then we do all these developmental, we work so hard, but then it feels like you get knocked back.
2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards.
And at one point we actually had a adoption developmental counselor person tell us, well, your goal with these kids is just get them through the day. Breathing, eating, that's just who they are. You're not going to make a difference. And we don't actually think that's true.
Right.
We think that with Jesus, that's true. But then there's also people who say all you got to do is just pray and believe and it'll be okay. And we also don't think that's true, because we've tried that. And you have to pray and you have to believe and you have to have Jesus be a part of it. But
you have to find the
you
solutions.
also have to figure out what's going on. And
right.
That's what's been so encouraging of this for us, is really figuring out there's deliberate ways to get there.
Right. And we're identifying the problems.
Yeah.
And we've got a program to fix them.
Yeah.
And I cover some of the details. I'm going to cover most of them as long as we're teaching this. I'm actually writing a series of books right now on neurological development. And I'm going to cover more than I've covered these last 8 sessions. Mm-hmm. And it'll be like a developmental guidebook, a handbook. If you had a handbook, everything would be easier. But there is no developmental handbook for the parent.
Right.
And your developmental neurologist, he's in the swamp up to his butt in alligators.
Right.
And he's got 20 minutes of time to spend with your child. And I've had people take their child to a developmental neurologist and got no time with him. They ended up seeing some other practitioner, but they got billed from the developmental neurologist. So any time you give with that person is precious, but he doesn't live with your child. He doesn't come home with your child.
Right.
So what do? We need a handbook.
Yeah.
I'm writing this handbook. The first installment should be out within the next few weeks.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how many it's going to take to write all of this. We thought we'd do 8 Facebook Lives and have it covered, but we're not anywhere near it. Yeah. So we do want to talk about the positive environment. And I do want to say there's 5 major causes of behavior problems. And this is hitting at the heart of almost everyone I know with children. Behavior problems, a negative environment. And we want to make a positive environment. So the 5 causes of behavior problems is the negative environment is number 1. Number 2, a big one, lack of structure. We're going to take that one apart. A lack of structure. Number 3, absence of appropriate feedback. By the time you're screaming Mimi, they're not getting appropriate feedback. Sometimes you got to go in and rescue mom and dad before you can help the child. You guys weren't at that point, though.
No.
So another one, number 4, is developmental issues. So we're seeing in some of your kids developmental shortfalls that are causing major behavior crises and challenges. And now if we fix those developmental problems, come on in. We're live. This is a liver than live audience sitting out here. And then we have the Facebook Live audience. So the 5th one I want to talk about for the 5th major cause of behavioral challenges would be allergies. Mm-hmm. Allergies, medical challenges, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll start with the negative environment. So what is a negative environment? It's where you have more negatives going on than positives. Right. So transverse, juxtaposed to that, what would the positive environment be? You have more positive things going than negative. And when I was sitting at the National Academy, and Robert Doman was saying he wants 4-to-1 positives to negatives to have a positive environment. So that's one of the experts I learned from. That's what he says.
But it seems like those negatives, the whole picture of our emotional being, the negatives take such a withdrawal that it seems like it's just like saving money in the bank. It seems like it takes forever to get enough positives in there to get it looking the way you want, and all of a sudden you make a couple bad decisions and the money goes away so fast. And I think it's that way in our environments as well.
It's an economy.
Yeah.
Literally, the positive versus negative environment is an economy. It's that way with a husband and wife, with a neighbor, but when you're living it with your kids and it's a negative environment, well, something's got to give. So a negative environment is where the negative feedback outweighs the positive. And we want a positive environment where the positive feedback puts that deposit in the bank, where you've got a plus, you're operating in the black, not the red. So what you need to do, first of all, is to change the positive frequency and intensity. You have to bring that up. And you're going to have to ignore some of the negative. That's hard to do. We'll talk about that more, what causes that. You have to increase the intensity of the positive environment. The positive environment has to be more exciting and more desirable than the negative one. It sounds simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whew. Well, let's see if we can crash through that one. So we have to establish healthy self-images with ourselves as parents and teachers and with our kids. And they need to have positive self-images. I think we have a cat photobombing our Facebook Live here. So if he comes in, we just say, hello, kitty. We want to improve the attitudes. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Establish desired behaviors. And we need that 4-to-1 positive to negative ratio. And sometimes you have to track every single thing. And you have to make such a big deal out of the positive things. And I've seen situations so bad, and this is the age of Instagram, where mommy sends daddy an Instagram, says, look what I caught Johnny doing. He made his letter B right. And dad sends his Instagram back, and woohoo, and mommy's showing Johnny, and Johnny's going like, that's cool. Look what Johnny did. Johnny, you got 2 of those problems right. Yeah. Where did you get 8 wrong, Johnny? Which one's a negative environment? Johnny, look, you can do this kind so well. You can do this multiplication so well. I can't believe you can do it that well. And we can make these others shine. Let's just keep at it. But we have to accentuate the positive. We have to catch them doing the positive. Johnny was nice to his sister. Johnny Jump Up was nice to Janie Jump Up. Mom caught it on camera, and she sent it to the whole network of moms. And the whole networks of moms say, look, Johnny was good to Janie. And then they're showing their kids that positive feedback.
So if you could only be like that.
Yeah, if you could only be like that. People look at my kids and they say, you just got the best kids in the world. In fact, I was accused of giving them good genetics, eugenics. And I'm like, it's all about the environment. It's all about the correction. It's all about building the positive self-image. It's establishing that and keeping that. That child's going to be the amazing child. That's the one they say, I wish my child was like yours. Of course, they don't get to see the ins and outs, the dredges of the bilge pump in life when we're raising our kids at home. They get to see the finished product, so they don't see all the tussles and heartaches, and which we all go through with our children. And it's more than just keeping them alive. I was at a homeschool convention, and the lady was teaching, said when they turn 14, 15, if you can just keep them alive for 2 more years, just keep, don't even worry about teaching them, just keep them alive. And that's what they were telling you with your kids.
Yeah.
Teach them to survive, keep them alive. You're doing good. Yeah, little Johnny may never read, but don't worry, you're a good daddy. Right? No, we want better than that. There's better available. We want that child that's 4 years old, child with Down syndrome, who can read on a 6th grade level. Why not? It's the parents who look and seek and don't stop and don't give up until they find this information. Mama Neem was doing flash words with one of her kids today. So flashing the words, because reading is visual recognition. And this child is having some struggles reading. And now he's starting to beat her out of some of those cards. And that positive environment is just coming right up. And I remember doing this with some of my kids. They got so excited because they could beat me out of almost all the cards. Because you put all the words on a card, and if they tell you what the word is, when you flash it to them, that's their card. Oh man, I got to make 42 more cards today? Are you kidding? What are you doing to me, kid? And they just think that's great.
Yeah.
Positive environment. It comes up, you reinforce it, and they get to read. This little guy is excited about reading. He has this book, and he's reading it to me earlier today. And I said, do you like this book? He's going, oh yeah, I like this book. And it's just a fantastic little book about different animals and insects and their adventures. And it's his level, his success level.
Mm-hmm.
He is getting success.
Yeah.
And he's excited. And yes, there's other challenges we're working on. But this little boy will be reading at a college level before he's in college. Because we're finding the solutions. We're finding the problem. We're finding where the foundation is off, but we're also finding where the rain gutter was leaking to wash the foundation out. And we're fixing it. And in fact, if we're going to be here next week, are we? We're going to be here next week. We're going to talk about eye development next week. All the intricate ins and outs. And see how that affects reading and emotions, and makes a negative environment when it's broken, helps make a positive environment when it's working right.
Well,
So,
part of positive environment, I would say in our experiences in the last couple months of processing through some of this, has been understanding that it's not necessarily that they can't do something, it's that we're trying to get them to do it in a way that doesn't match where they are developmentally.
correct.
And so it was, for instance, shifting from trying to get one of our kids to understand phonics when he wasn't in that kind of sequential processing level, shifting back to a rote memory, he's just rocking, and he's starting to read and just doing amazing. And so it's positive environment. I think sometimes if we're frustrated, it's not just because things are going badly, but because we're not being good detectives.
Right. Well, you can't go beyond what you're taught. And this stuff's not taught
Yeah.
in general. Right now it's on Facebook Live. Take advantage of it. The book will come out, and I think it will be the books. It's going to be a series. It's going to be like $2.99 for your electronic edition and $7.50 for your paperback, and I don't know how much for the. I'm not going to make this $100 a book, but you're going to get $1 million worth of information out of each book. So, back to the positive environment. As you're getting successes, though, the environment, the positives are coming up.
Yep.
And so you get a little success, it just keeps getting better. Awesome. Well, the single most important factor to determine how well and how fast the child learns is the environment. In a negative environment, you're just being mean to them, you're being nasty to them. They're not getting it. It's phonics. They hate phonics, right?
Yep.
But they can't developmentally understand phonics.
Right.
They can see that flashcard and it says elephant. That's theirs. They didn't have to sound out the pH. Because that's a concept. If they can't process at a certain level, they're not going to get that concept, but they can see the word elephant and know.
And learn what it is.
So the concepts fill in. It's like with your little Johnny jump up, you're fixing the sequential processing problems. And when you get through, the door's going to close and open just like it should. You're not going to have to shave and trim the door because you fix the foundation. The phonetics are just going to fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal. All right, so self-image. Now this child is becoming a success. All of your children are becoming a success. One of your daughters is so excited, she's going, will you test me? I want to be, are you coming to test? Yeah. You know, just kind of holding her back just a little bit, just as a tease. And just building the excitement, and she's seeing me go through her siblings, and she sat through a couple of these sessions, and she's getting it. She loves it. She's getting help. Her environment's coming out too.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be one amazing kid before she's through. So how much they learn is a direct reflection on how much they like learning.
Mm-hmm.
When your kid says that I like to read this book, I'm like, well, let's get him more books like that. When he's through with this book. And what I did with my kids is I collect first edition, a lot of signed copies, action adventure, historical fictions, things with good moral principles, and dog stories and horse stories, and famous authors. And so I've got all these books lined up on my shelves, all neat. And so I tell my kids, okay, you read Big Red by James Kilgard. You can have that book. It's the first edition, but you can have it.
Mm.
And they go, wow. Well, what about the next one in that series? All of a sudden, I'm wiped out. I got to go rebuy all those books to put on my shelf. The Nancy Drew series. Whatever's exciting. I've got a whole set. I'm waiting for one of my grandchildren to get excited about Nancy Drew, and I'm going to feed him first edition Nancy Drew books.
Mm-hmm.
It's an investment, and the positive environment goes out.
Yeah.
So you can use that for your trick too, especially if it's something you like and you blesses me to collect these Leonard Wibberley books. Those are kind of big in the homeschool genre because it's a lot of Civil War things that he does. So Wibberley, I've got all the Wibberleys, most of them signed first editions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just waiting for one of my kids or grandkids to beat me out of that series. And I'll just find another one. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But I won't give you that same offer. I'll let you read my Quo Vadis.
There you go.
And when you read that, you can have that. So how much they like learning is a direct reflection of how they perceive themselves. Well, I'm not good at reading, so I hate reading, and the negative cycle, the negative neurochemicals come up and they regenerate, and it's okay, Johnny, it's time for reading. Man, I hate reading, grumble, futz, fuss. No, Johnny, we're going to do this. We're going to kill this both. We're going to do this for 40 minutes. If we don't get it right, we're going to do it for an hour.
Yeah, we have those things.
You've done that? Oh boy, how many I've done that before I learned better with some of my kids. And when you eliminate bad behaviors, the child will strive to be good. So once you get that positive environment going, it feeds itself, and that's just like the negative environment. You ever been taken down by a negative environment? It's a machine. It's almost unstoppable. So I want to talk about the intensity cup. So you've got a mug. Let's just pretend that's an intensity cup.
Central Washington Wildcats.
Oh,
Dad.
wow. So everybody's got an intensity cup. Every man, woman, and child. Husbands and wives. The husband will have an intensity cup. The 19-year-old sons sitting in the liver than live audience, they've got an intensity cup. And that cup has to be filled every day of intensity. And it's going to get filled every day, whether it's negative intensity or positive intensity. That cup has to be filled. Now, some of your kids have this big cup. Some of them have a much smaller cup. Everybody has an intensity cup. And it's like some of these kids, they need to be tickled for 3 minutes a day. And it fills their intensity cup up. If you're not tickling them, they're over there picking at you, picking on you. I'm trying to do my work here, son, go away. You know, I've got to finish this contract up. Is that guy? Somebody's pointing fingers out there in the live than live audience. And they just want their intensity filled. So if you put your pen down, chase them through the house, tackle them, put them in a half-smelly Nelson, and tickle them for 3 minutes, their cup's full, they leave you alone. You get it? Or they're dragging it out of you. You're giving them their intensity, but it's negative. And you have to find in each child what fills their little intensity cup up. It's the same with husbands and wives. And it's a personality thing in some cases. Kids have personality differences. Some kids, they have this little thimble full of intensity. That's all they need all day long. They function by themselves. They play by themselves. They really don't need you much. And some kids have this 10-gallon bucket. It's got to be filled. If you're not filling it, your job is to fill it. If you're not filling it, they're going to drag it out of you. Does this make sense? Intensity cup, the husband and wife. The wife's nagging the husband. Her intensity cup's getting full of nagging negativity. When the husband needs to stop working on the contract, honey, let's go for a walk. And she's like, oh, you spend time with me? Her little intensity cup gets full. They take a 5-minute walk. And her cup's full. It's amazing. Now some girls need a lot more than that. You know, I personally like to give my wife scads and scads of that. Give her as much as she can handle until she's like, okay, I want to go off and I want to go somewhere else now. Go away here. My cup's full. My cup overflowing.
Well, it's interesting because while this is all going on, we've been doing a lot of talking, reading, studying about bonding issues and how people connect, and it's all related that different people are created to connect in different ways, and that cup is filled differently for different people, and so you have to do your homework with every amazing, unique person to fill up the right cup. Because if you fill my teacup up with coffee, I'm not going to appreciate it. That's the wrong kind of intensity. Nasty stuff, that coffee.
Well, if your wife's nagging, she needs time with you. Look at what they're trying to drag out of you. If they're trying to pick at you and yank at your clothing and be physical, they want to be wronged. They want to be physically wrestled. You have to figure it out. If they keep bringing the book or trying to read what you're reading and stuff, they want to be read to. Oh, of course they can read. They're already at a level they can, but they want to be read to. Or whatever. Kind of like, take a look at the 5 love languages. See what your child's giving you. You know, some children, they want you to just spend some time with them too. You go down to Harbor Freight. For $1.99, you get these wooden skeletons that you glue together with a tiny drop of wood glue. And the kid helps you punch them out line up the number, snap, and you got a dinosaur. Or you got this ant, or you got this gadfly. And that child is just, his intensity cups full. You work on it for 5 minutes a day. You take a week. And the child's full, and they're valued. And their self-esteem comes up. Wow, look at this. We built a gadfly. As you look at it, it goes great with that butterfly we built. Maybe next week we'll paint one of them. They have to have that time. If it's, go away, you bother me, I got to get my work done. Well, when you get to the end of your life, are you going to say, sure wish I spent more time working on those contracts?
Yeah.
No, not what you're going to say. And the child grows up, they move out, the cat's in the cradle, just like the song says, and you're going to miss those times, especially the positive ones. And my wife keeps telling me that when our kids are all finally gone, we're going to miss these days.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to the time when they're gone, but we are going to miss them.
And it happens much faster than you think.
Boy, time compresses when you get older. I keep telling my kids, stop trying to grow up so fast. All right, let's cover the second one, lack of structure. Wow. I see this, and I'm talking directly to several couples I know are online right now watching this. Lack of structure, and it's like this, the child comes up, and they're bugging you, and you say, go away, and as soon as they're out of your sight, they can do what they want. There's no structure. You tell them, Johnny, stop that. And then you go back to what you're doing, what's Johnny going to do? He's going to restart what he was doing. And you've got to have structure, and you've got to follow through. And I want to think the follow through is probably the most important equation here. Is when you've got structure, you have to make it consistent. Kids require structure. They're always pushing the boundaries. They're pushing the boundaries. Pushing the boundaries. How many times can I jump on the couch before I'm in trouble this time? Oh, you've been there. Right. So this week it's jump on it the first time, you're in trouble. Bam. Wooden spoon comes out, whack. Or whatever punishment you're doing. Time out. For you, go to timeout. Go to your room. Whatever. Next week is, Johnny, I told you, no jumping on the couch. You do that again. Johnny, this is the fourth time. Okay, fifth time, that's it. The boundary changed. The structure changed. That child needs to have consistency in whatever you set that at. If you set it at, I'm going to warn you once. And the second time you're in trouble, they know that boundary and they know it's consistent. That's structure. If the boundary keeps moving, that child will keep pushing. That child will be insecure in their environment. Just because we don't follow through, just because they don't know if it's going to be the first time we blow our top or the 8th time, or some days we can just ignore them all day long. They can jump on the couch all day long and we do nothing. The next day we yell at them because it looked like they're going to jump on the couch. Where's the boundaries? Where's the structure? Where's the sense of security? Where's the 8 o'clock bedtime? A child needs structure. They need that 8 o'clock bedtime. And I want to tell you something. I tricked my kids when they were young. They were 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 o'clock, it's bedtime. It's really 9 o'clock. But that sense of security, that sense of structure, that it was always there for them. Yeah. And it was, go to your room and pick up your laundry. We only had to tell them once. Because that was our structure, our boundaries. Our kids knew those boundaries. And then people would say, you got the greatest kids ever. Well, they knew their boundaries. They were secure. We had a positive environment. So I can't stress this enough. If you tell them once, mean it once. And then follow up. I've had parents that tell their kid, stop doing that, and then they don't follow up. And I see this, and I pointed it out to parents. I was sitting in somebody's home the other day in Phoenix, and their kids doing something that I've heard them tell them not to. And I said, Snowball Pete's over there throwing snowballs, you told him not to. Snowball Pete, we told you not to throw those, and blah, 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 blah. And then what does Snowball Pete do 30 seconds later? As soon as Dad's not paying attention, yep, there goes another snowball. Snowballs in Phoenix, that didn't work out.
Not really.
But
we get the illustration.
You have to follow up. I told you to clean up your room. I expect you to clean up your room. They know that when you come looking, the room has got to be clean, or whatever structure, whatever boundary, whatever punishment you set up is not really so much what is the punishment, it's that there is a consequence. And you as a parent have to figure that out.
Yep.
Now, the liberals don't like this, but I always raised my kids with a wooden spoon. And I gave them one spot. I never bruised them. Never correct them when you're mad. Because that's a changing environment. That's the boundaries moving. The boundary just moved. Whoa, Mom's mad and Aunt so-and-so, therefore I'm in trouble. Now the whole environment's shook, they're insecure. There's a problem. Negative environment. We have to handle the discipline. The consequence is the same every time. I think in the Septuagint of the Old Testament, to train up your child is like you're sharpening a knife. Keep the same angle, the same stroke. Exact same angle, same stroke. You get the knife sharp, you go out, you use it. Then you come back, you give it the same stroke. And it takes less to keep it every time, but it has to be consistent. If your boundaries are changing, your child will be insecure, and they will be pushing those boundaries. They will, I guarantee you, I promise you. If they don't know what the boundary is, they've got to find it. That's their job, to find the boundaries and test them. Your job, set that boundary and keep it. Right there. I've seen really ultra-strict parents, and I've seen lax parents. Their boundaries were different, but they have to be consistent. Now, I can't tell you how strict to make your environment. Every child is different. Some children need to be boxed in, so they are so structured that they can't hardly move, and that's where they function the best. That's where they thrive. That's where their environment is actually positive. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Some kids are so loosey-goosey, it's like our 15-year-old, we say, well, let's go do your math. And he's going to go do it. And yeah, we follow up. He knows there's going to be a follow-up. He knows there's going to be a test on Friday. Yeah, because that's the way we do it. But we follow up. So I can't stress that enough. Follow up. If you change the rules, you confuse the child, you just fed a negative environment. It's a challenge because all of a sudden you're going to start setting up new boundaries, new rules. And if you're not consistent, if you don't hold these for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the child's going to win. It's going to go right back to where it was. Mm-hmm. So you have to determine, you have to set the stakes of the boundary, the boundaries. Now, if you're going to move the boundaries, that's okay too. You can tell little Johnny, jump up. Okay, Johnny, I know you're not allowed to jump on the furniture, but we just got you a special mattress and box spring in your room, and we're going to let you jump on that. Wow. He gets all excited. Jumps on it till he wrecks it. Who cares? But you can change the boundaries.
Right.
You can say, okay, Johnny, we were sending you to bed at 8, but it's not working out. You need 30 more minutes of sleep. We're going to change the boundaries, and then you make it consistent. Mm-hmm. You're in control. You're the parent.
Right.
It's not a negotiation. Mm-hmm. If you make it a negotiation with a 4-year-old, you've already lost. If your 10-year-old is functioning on the level of a 4-year-old emotionally, you're going to lose. Mm-hmm. Don't negotiate. You cannot negotiate. Not a negotiation. These are the rules. This is how we do it. I'm not mad at you. Oh, you jumped on the couch. I'm not mad at you. You know that's not the rules, so time out. Or you just lost 10 minutes of Xbox. But I only get 30 minutes because I lost 20 minutes yesterday. Well, you just lost another 10 minutes. You want to argue about it? Well, take 5 more minutes. Oh, no. Want to argue. But you're consistent and never mad about it.
Right.
Their job is to challenge the rules. They're just doing their job. So don't get mad at it for doing their job.
Yeah.
Your job is to be consistent. Your job is to be stable.
Yeah.
Their job is to see if they can push you over the edge. So, set your boundaries and don't get mad. If you ever punish a child because you're angry, you need your timeout. Timeout better be for you. And sometimes parents have to do that. I've had moms, we talked about the marching to organize the breaks. And mom's got to go in timeout. She marches around the neighborhood, comes back, and, okay, Johnny, now we can talk about what you did. Because I'm not mad anymore. Mommy organized her brain and got the positive side of her brain.
Yeah.
So their job is to push the boundaries. Our job is to make sure they stand. And if you let them fudge, you're producing that negative environment. And it's going to be a fight. But depending on the kid. I remember we went through somebody's cupboards a few weeks ago because of gluten. They had kids and dad were both intolerant to gluten. So I went through, and all these beautiful snacks had all this hidden gluten in it. And the kids, the whole kids, it was like a wailing wall in Jerusalem. And everyone was just crying and sobbing. There was tears. There was certainly going to be a death or two. And then a few weeks later, I checked in with them while we were at the grocery store. And the kids said, well, what about this, Mom? Let's read this label. Oh, that's got the bad stuff. Oh, shoot, let's keep looking.
Mm-hmm.
They kept that boundary. They held it. And within 2 or 3 weeks, the kids were coming around. Oh, the boundary's not going to change, okay? Well, then I'll change my tactics. So that's huge. Lack of structure. Structure with boundaries. That's one of the bigger factors to the negative environment.
And it seems like in our culture, we don't like boundaries and structure as adults even, which we still need.
Right.
And so we find ourselves not wanting to impose those on our kids because we've been told they're bad, even though they're actually good.
Right.
And then there's also the dynamic of as kids change developmentally, the boundaries change. So that, one of the things with our adopted kids has been figuring out where they are chronologically in age is different than where they are developmentally.
Right.
But they're smart too, and they'll sit there and they'll say, well, why didn't Isaac have to do this when he was 9 years old? Or, and they see some of those things that sometimes aren't always the same because they're not in the same place.
Right.
And so sometimes, it sounds easier than it can sometimes be. And I think that when, just a note is we're all dealing with different challenges, but when you have one kid, it's really easy to focus on them and figure out exactly where they hold on. But when you're dealing, the more people you introduce into that web of relationship that you're doing, the more complex it becomes. And I think the more important the structure becomes.
Right.
But it has to also be a structure that has the ability to flex with who you're working with too.
The kids need to know they can depend on snack time.
Yeah.
They can depend on playtime. They can depend on nap time. They can depend on math time. We do math from 9 to 9:30.
Right.
And that structure helps generate that positive environment. Kids thrive in structure. And if you don't have structure, it's going to be chaos.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Absence of appropriate feedback. This is the yelling, screaming, meaning.
Mm.
That is inappropriate. That is the angry parent
Yeah.
giving the negative feedback. That is, Johnny, jump up! Oh, here's this. You know, how can you be so stupid? Don't ever say that to your child. Don't ever call them that they're not stupid. They're so smart. They got you so out of bounds. You know, their adaptive function is so high. Some of these kids, it's amazing what they can do with what little they have. But they need appropriate feedback, including how to express anger. And the first thing they do is they see you. And I'm not the best example all the time. And I regret that. And I have trouble, you know, I've got fumble fingers and I'm trying to do something and I get mad and I throw a wrench and I didn't know he was looking at me. I was saying something one time, I was really mad at something and a neighbor walked right around the corner of my house. I'm like, ah, I got caught. Oh man, was I really saying that? Man, so they will express what we express. They are mirrors. They are little monkeys. They do monkey shines, right? The monkey just, and what does a baby monkey do? That's what he does. They watch you. Oh, they watch you. They watch your every move. They say your every word. Where'd you learn that word, Johnny? From you, Mom. No, boy.
But the truth is, character is caught more than it's taught. It has to be both.
Yeah.
The structure of the teaching, but no matter what you try and teach or what structure you set in place,
Yeah.
if you aren't practicing it yourself,
Right.
you aren't going to get there.
Well, I was at my favorite cafe writing this morning, and I was walking up, I saw somebody snooping through the bicycles in the rack. And I'm like, I bet those aren't his bicycles. And so I talked to somebody and said, you know, his bicycles those are. Someone that worked at the coffee shop, well, I think I know. And I'm watching this guy that fixes to steal a bike. And this other guy's sitting next to me with his little daughter. She's probably 4 or 5. And sure enough, this guy gets on a bike to take off with one. And this kid jumps up. He's bigger and more impressive. Hey, is that your bike? And the guy freezes, and little girl's going like, oh, Daddy, what's going on? And Daddy's going like, I could see disdain fixing to come. The other guy was figuring to steal a bike, and I just happened, I knew they were Christians because we'd had a little conversation. And I just happened to say, oh, your daddy was talking to him because he needs some prayer. He needs some prayer, so your daddy did a good thing and turned it to a positive. So this little 4-year-old girl doesn't have to learn to be indignant or full of disdain. So we got to watch that. We got to watch our attitudes with kids, and we have to, you know, we're not making excuses for people, but we have to, even in that case, we have to find some way to turn it around and keep our attitude about it. How to do it. So that's ignoring children's successes. These kids want to please you. They built a Tinker Toy tower to impress you. Watch, Dad, watch before it falls over. Oh, okay, that's cool. Man, they want to come over there and get engaged with them and say, oh, I'm going to come over and knock that one. No. And they defend it. And eventually they kick out and they knock it out. I mean, you know, it's just, we need to say, wow, I didn't know you could build on that top. How did you make that balance? We need to find their successes and get engaged in what they're doing. They're out to impress us. They really are. Instead of highlighting their failures. So, this affects child attitude, their self-image, their relationship with their peers. I noticed you're not taking notes this time.
Yeah, last week I was taking notes on my phone and I was told it looked like I was falling asleep. So this time around, if I look like I'm falling asleep, it's just because I'm falling asleep. I'm not taking notes. So, but I'm actually not. So,
all right. So we've covered the intensity cup. We've covered lack of structure, absence of appropriate feedback. Because these kids are looking through their parents, their teachers, caregivers. Well, let's look at developmental issues. So we kind of started off talking about this. And developmental issues cause negative environment when your child is emotional because they can't see out of their right eye, but they're right-handed. And they're making emotional responses. We have to recognize, oh, the child is bit that way because there's a problem with the foundation. And we need to recognize developmental disorders. The child with autism is hypersensitive to things touching their skin. And if we're on to that, we're watching that, there's ways to fix that. There's developmental therapies. But we need to make sure that that child's environment is not being provoked. We need to make sure that they're set up for success developmentally. I just don't know that aberrant behavior is caused by an aberration in their development. Let's find it and fix it instead of punishing them for it. So we need to recognize that. When it's not a cookie cutter, guys. There's no cookie cutter that says Isaac. There's Isaac, same cookie cutter now works on Johnny Jump Up. Look, no, didn't fit. It doesn't work. Each child's different.
Everyone's unique.
And you cannot expect organized function from a disorganized brain. You cannot expect 10-year-old responses from a child whose neurological age is 4 years old. So we have to look at the developmental challenges. If they're giving 4-year-old responses and they're processing on the level of 4-year-old, you cannot expect them to act like a 10-year-old. But we want them to. I'd rather have my kids who I was like acting more mature. And look at who they want to play with. Do they play with children younger than them? Or they hang out with older children who are developmentally older because your child is developmentally older, so they want to hang out with their peers, even though they're 10 functioning on a 14-year-old level, they want to hang out with the 14-year-olds. If they're 10 and all they want to do is play with 4-year-olds, it's because that's their peer group. Developmentally, emotionally, they're functioning there, they relate to that easier. So developmental challenges definitely cause challenges in your positive versus negative economy.
Right.
Now let's look at allergies. Oh boy, red food dyes. Who isn't on to that? If you haven't heard about developmental challenges in red food dye, then I suggest cut your child off of all red food dye. And then 2 weeks from now, give them a Jolly Rancher, a big fat red one, and see what happens. Bam. You're going to find out how negative Johnny is. And I had a lady come into the clinic with her. I was testing her. I think it was a little girl. And the little girl was being all negative. And she said, okay, if you'll just sit still and let's get through this, I'll give you one of your candies. And she popped open a tin that had this little peppermint with a red swirl. I said, Mom, if you give that to her, you're going to find out if she's allergic to red food dye. And she's like, I gave it to her. Within 10 minutes, that kid was a wreck. Screaming, nasty wreck. And Mom's going like, I didn't have a clue what I've been feeding my kid. She brought that kid there because of these this rage and this problem. And it was red food dye. I had a child when I was evaluating kids at Notre Dame. We had some autism group going there, and Mom brought her child with autism to me because he would have fits of rage. Right in the middle of everything, he flips my table over, tears around the room, throwing chairs, heads out the door. Took him 10 minutes to find the kid. He was running around the streets, up and down the alleys, in a rage. He got back, and I said, oh, we got to check his blood sugar. Checked his blood sugar. He was at a 30. That's deadly. That's deadly. it drops any more than that, you're going to have problems. And I said, Mom, his blood sugar's in the tank. We fed him a snack. Right out of the kitchen, a little ham sandwich or something. The kid came right back and he was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, there it is, Mom. And so she has to feed that kid, or had to feed that kid 6 or 8 times a day, snacks. Good protein snacks to keep his blood sugar stable. Now, that was the foundation part. The leaking gutter part was something else, causing this foundation to wobble to where he would take off and rage. He would hurt people. And this kid was big enough, mean enough to hurt people when he was in this rage. So we got to get smart about this. Food and food allergies. And some of these are really hard to find because you have immunoglobulin E, your IgE, immunoglobulin E response. Are you going to sleep on
No,
that?
I'm good. I just had a long day, and I'm good though. I'm tracking.
Just checking.
Sorry about the yawn, guys.
Yeah, don't follow his suit up.
He's sitting in this hard metal chair, and he puts me in the recliner, and I have to be alert, and it's hard.
Well, let's get you a hard metal chair next time.
Yeah, it might be smart actually.
Yeah. So what was I talking about?
You were talking about the hemoglobin EMPI. I'm not taking notes, so you're asking me questions without my notes.
Immunoglobulin E.
But I told you I had a long day, so I'm sequentially at about a 2. So
Immunoglobulin E is, if they get a hold of pineapple, you better have an EpiPen.
okay.
Because their throat starts to constrict, and their lips start to swell, and within minutes you're going to be in the ER, or you're going to have to give them a shot of Epi. That's immunoglobulin E. Those are really easy to find. Because that kid's allergic to coconut. If he gets near a coconut, if you even go in the same room with a coconut, he's going to break out in hives. That one's easy to find. IgG, immunoglobulin G as in George, that could be up to 72 hours later is when they react. 72 hours. Today is Thursday. Thursday night. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. What do they eat Tuesday night? Actually, I'm sorry, what did they eat Monday night? What did you eat Monday night?
I don't know.
This one's a little harder to pin down.
Next, I gotta pay attention, yeah.
Right. I didn't know that I was allergic to cottage cheese. But we had cottage cheese on Monday night. And all day Thursday, I'm having these problems. You see the picture?
Right.
That's a hard one to nail down. So that takes an allergy diet where you just eliminate everything and start back. You got to eliminate all dairy products, all of them, and then start back with a few and see. That one's a little harder to nail down, but it's worth it. You want to keep the bad behavior, the negative environment, the learning disabilities, you want to keep that? Or do you want to change your lifestyle? Well, we don't do gluten at our home because Johnny Jump Up, if he gets gluten, whoom, he goes way up and then he comes down and, oh boy, it's a seething, pustulating, bubbling, smoldering mass of emotions because he got a hold of gluten. Is it easier to put up with that behavior or eliminate gluten? So that's a big deal. Gluten, sugars, all these things. You've got to find it out. Even if you have to go to an allergist, they can do an immunoglobulin E test, blood test, and tell you the obvious things. So there are tests for this. Or eliminate them. Can't afford the immunoglobulin G test. Cut them off of gluten for 2 weeks and then feed them a pizza, a Friday night pizza from Domino's. Full gluten. Let them have a pizza bomb, gluten bomb, and see what happens. Oh, there's that negative behavior. And there it is. So if you find that. We talked about vaccines right at the start of here. And a lot of children have regressions, even if it's for a few days. They get vaccinated, their immune system gets in an uproar, inflammation, brain, the screaming child. They get a vaccine, they scream for 4 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there's physiological things. We were talking earlier when we were looking at your kids. I know we're fixing to wrap it up here. But we were talking about the meninges of the skull and the brain. They anchor the brain in place. And those meninges help your 23 bones. The 23rd one is the hyoid bone. Some colleges don't count that. So the 22 or 23 bones in your skull open and close like a mechanism. And they pump cerebral spinal fluid all through the ventricles of your brain, the whole way to your sacrum. Your skull is a cleverly designed hydraulic pump. And if your meninges in your skull aren't working right, pumping in a rhythm 8 times a minute, opening, closing like clockwork, then there's a problem. And let's say your meninges are putting pressure on your brain.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal, is it? Not a lot of pressure, right? Okay, 20 minutes from now, you're like, well, yeah, it's not a lot of pressure, but it's a little uncomfortable. 2 days from now, you're like, let go of my arm.
Yeah.
2 weeks from now, you're going to be. Imagine that on the brain.
Yeah.
That pressure right there for 3 years on your brain. Your brain would be mad. And I've seen it. I've had several kids. One in particular, she was a screamer. She had autism, but she was a screamer. Everything was screaming. Her whole life was lived screaming out loud.
Mm.
And it happened within hours of the vaccine. And I'm looking at the kid. I'm trained in the cranium, biocranial therapy. And I'm looking at her and going like, well, her skull's not working right. Her meninges are in a twist, so she's still screaming everything. You touch her, she screams. She sits up, she screams. She stands, everything's screaming. It's just, she's one loud scream. And she's been that way for 6 years. I'm adjusting her cranium. Right in the middle of the adjustment, her scream died out. And when the adjustment was over, she got off the table. She walked over to I had a nurse in the room, and she said, what does this do? And she's looking through some of the equipment at that station, talking in a normal voice, and Mom's going like, what just happened? I said, that pressure right there, that was enough to set off her brain, and you had an angry child. The solution was simple. The solutions are always simple. Sometimes it's the complicated process getting to that. That's where it is. So, we're talking about the positive environment, all the things that affect it, make it a negative environment.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap this up now next week. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about eye development. And we're going to talk about how the eyes develop, what goes wrong with them, most importantly, what we can do to fix it.
Yeah.
And we're going to use some real life situations right here in this house to show you how to fix them. So if I can get a cameraman to step up, if you can get your recliner to work. So liver than live, they get recliners. All right, so at any rate, we'll see you